year and a half ago now. I think it's on our YouTube channel. But you can see that as the start of this series, and it wasn't intended to be a series, but then recently, about 6 months ago, I started to make a series of lessons after that, more about spiritual warfare, but this knowing your enemy part of the series is really teaching us from the enemy's perspective what his tactics are, so that we can recognize it in the world, to recognize what he's doing. And so in the last lesson of knowing your enemy, we discussed how Satan uses deception and comfort to attack us. We'll very briefly, cover those things before we move into this evening's lessons. And so in those lessons, we discussed from the very beginning that Satan exists and that he is very active in our world. In fact, 1 Peter 5:8 puts it this way: be of sober spirit and be on the alert, because your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. And so not only does he exist, but he's prowling around waiting for a victim, an easy target, if you want to call it that, right? And this is critical. If we aren't looking for him, if you aren't looking for him, then you are easy prey. We're going to come back to that in a moment. And worse yet is if we ignore the fact that he exists. You've seen this quote, I think. It all blends together, sorry. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. And so the point of this lesson series is for us to ask ourselves, for you to ask yourself, are you walking around acting like he does not exist? Or are you actively looking for him in the world around you, and specifically in your life, so that you can counter his attacks? You see, as Christians, we need to be able to see Satan in everything that he does, just like we need to see God in all the things that he does. Because when you see Satan's tactics, you can be more prepared for them. In the military, we are taught to know ourselves and to know our enemy. Sun Tzu said it this way: if we know the enemy and know ourselves, we need not fear the result of 100 battles. We would study endlessly to understand who we're up against. Enemy composition, what do the commanders do, what are their tactics, all those things. But as Christians, we need to do the same. We need to know that Satan exists. Knowing that Satan exists is only one part of the equation. We must know his strengths. We must know his weaknesses. We must know our weaknesses, right? We must know his allies, his weapons, and his tactics. We know that he prowls around like a lion waiting for someone to devour, so we need to know how he can devour us so that we can be prepared for when he tries to devour us. And so the biggest thing I can do with this lesson series is not for you to be able to recite his tactics, but to give you a lens through which you see the world so you can look past the physical realm that we see all around us and see what's going on behind it in the spiritual realm. To help you to see the spiritual warfare going on around you all the time. To see temptation and sin and the devil at work in the world around us. And to be able to call it out and bring it to the light. And to be able to see the enemy attacking you so you can defend effectively against him. And so in an effort to do all of that, we started 2 weeks ago, last lesson, with two of the enemy's tactics that he has. And if you recall, I'm borrowing this technique, if you want to call it that, from C.S. Lewis. He wrote a book called The Screwtape Letters, in which he's actually, the book is a series of letters from a uncle demon to a nephew demon, and he's teaching him how to trip up his human, how to make him not become a Christian, or when he becomes a Christian, how to make him fall away. And it was fascinating for me to see that perspective. Because in military intelligence, that's what we did. I was the advisor to my commander. Sir, if he's going to attack you, knowing your capabilities, this is how I would do it, knowing his capabilities. And so to see it from that perspective, at least for me, is very valuable. And so in the last lesson, we talked about how Satan is first and foremost a deceiver. And that's really the umbrella under which all the things that he does. Satan is a liar and the father of all lies. And the very first time we see him, it's deception. But specifically in that lesson, we discussed how he can deceive you into continuing to believe something that you already believe when you believe something in error. So if I'm Satan, I'm going to tell atheists that it's foolish to believe that there's a God. I'm going to tell non-believers, like Sam said this morning, he talked about this, which I love it when that happens. If I'm Satan, I'm going to tell non-believers, there's no way you can be forgiven. There's no way you can be saved. You've done too many bad things to deserve any kind of forgiveness. And we talked about there's a kernel of truth in that. We don't deserve forgiveness. But if I'm Satan, I'm going to make you think God won't forgive you. You've done too many bad things in your life. And if you're a Christian and I'm Satan, I'm going to tell you that your closely held false doctrines are true. That what they've always been taught is true, and that if anyone were to question it, then it's questioning the preachers or the elders or the family members that taught us those things. And how dare they question what Papa taught you? We then discussed how Satan uses comfort to keep you from doing the things that really matter. If Satan can make you avoid being uncomfortable, then he can keep you right where you are and never growing. If I'm Satan, I'm going to use comfort to keep you going back to the things that you enjoy rather than delayed gratification. I'm going to keep you warming a pew. I'm going to keep you from evangelizing because you fear rejection. That's uncomfortable. I'm going to make sure you're comfortable enough in your finances not to rely on God. And if I'm Satan, I'm going to keep you complacent. We talked a little bit about complacency. So let's look at another one of Satan's tactics tonight, and that is of distraction. I love this quote. The devil doesn't win through destruction, he wins through distraction. And I don't even know where I got that from, but how fascinating is that to think about that? He achieves destruction through distraction. We did the same thing in the military. If I want to attack you on this side, I'm going to distract you on this side. You're focused all your attention over here, and I'm going to do some kind of maneuver to get in behind you or beside your forces where you're the weakest. But the most insidious and destructive part about distraction is that you don't know that you're being distracted. And that should scare you. Because you have no idea. You're unwitting. It's unwilling. It happens to you unwillingly and unknowingly. And in the case of the military, typically when we're distracting someone, by the time they realize they're distracted, it's too late. They're either destroyed or their most valuable assets that they could strike us with are destroyed. If you're following the Iran conflict, that's exactly what happened. I'm going to try to distract you to destroy you. And so that's the most destructive part about being distracted, is that you don't know that you're distracted. Another reason why I have the lights off is because now you're going to see a video that proves that point, that you don't even know that you're being distracted. If you have seen this, don't give it away to your neighbor. This is an awareness test. Your task is to count how many times the team in white passes the ball. Did you get it? How many did you count? Was it 13? Congratulations. Did you miss the moonwalking bear? It's hard to see, but you're going to see it out of the corner over here, out of this side. There's going to be a man dressed up like a bear, and he's going to come into the middle of the screen. There he is right there. He's going to dance a little jig. Oh, I lost him. There he goes. And he moonwalked out the other side. What's the point? It's easy to miss something when you're not looking for it. You were distracted, and you didn't even know it. I made a statement at the beginning of the lesson. I didn't even mean to do it, but I remember going over this lesson and thinking, okay, well, I've got to come back to this point. I put it back up? Yeah. The statement was about Satan knowing he exists and that if you aren't looking for him, you're easy prey. The reason why lions are so successful hunting is because they have that camouflage, right? And the prey doesn't even know they're there until it's too late. And so when you're not, if I were to tell you, hey, count the passes, but also be looking for a moonwalking bear, you would have been much more likely to catch the moonwalking bear. But you were so focused on the passes, because that was the task. You weren't looking for other things. And so there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that. But the point is, it's easy to miss something you're not looking for. Now, the Bible doesn't actually use the word distraction, but it is all over the place if you're not looking for it. Let's look in Matthew chapter 13. We have the parable of the sower. And I'm going to put it up on the screen here in a moment. See if you can catch it as I read it. In Matthew chapter 13, verses 3 through 9, we have the parable. And it says, "And he spoke many things to them in parables, saying, Behold, the sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate them up. Others fell on rocky places where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up because they had no depth of soil. But when the sun had risen, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them out. And others fell in the good soil and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. He who has ears, let him hear." The beauty of this parable is that he explains it. Pick up in verse 18. It says, "Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and he snatches away what has been sown in his heart. This is the one on whom seed was sown beside the road. The one on whom the seed was sown on the rocky places, this is the man who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no firm root in himself, but is only temporary. And when affliction or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he falls away. And the one on whom the seed was sown among the thorns, this is the worry of the world and of the deceitfulness of wealth, that she choked the word, and it becomes unfruitful. And the one on whom the seed was sown on the good soil, this is the man who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and brings forth some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. Did you catch it? The one on whom the seed was sown among the thorn, this is the man who hears the word, and the worry of the world and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. Mark 4:19 puts it similarly. The worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desire for other things. They choke out the word. They distract us from what really matters. So if I'm Satan, I'm going to use those things to distract you. The Apostle Paul frequently wrote about running the race of faith with endurance, and the Hebrew writer picks up on that. And he says, and he urged believers to throw off everything that hinders and the sin which so easily entangles. See, these hindrances that he talks about can be those distractions that slow you down or pull you off course. And so be thinking about if you're trying to run a race and you have a pack on your back, that's going to slow you down. That's going to distract you from being able to get to the finish line, or at least slow you down from getting there. Cast off those things. Cast off those distractions. We also have a similar teaching from Jesus in Matthew chapter 6, the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 6:33, "But seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things, all these worries of the world, and what shall I eat, or what shall I drink, or what shall I wear, they'll be added unto you." Those can be distractions. And then he finishes out that part, that section of teaching. "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will care about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." And so the Bible is teaching us to focus on God instead of those worries of life, or hindrances, if you want to call them that. And so I see distraction here. In just these two passages, it's all over the place. It's a call to intentionally shift your focus away from distractions, from anxiety-inducing concerns, and onto His kingdom and His righteousness, which will bring peace. All right. Let's get a little specific, right? Let's identify some things that distract us. And if I were to say, what distracts you, what comes to your mind? Probably first. I'm making an assumption. But we're going to start with the thing that distracts me first. And it's this wonderful, little, terrible piece of technology in my pocket. We're going to cover phones. I'll put it under the heading of entertainment. Entertainment in our country, in our culture, is a humongous distraction. And phones are a really big part of this. You know how much technology is crammed in here? Well, I'm going to show you. How old does this make you feel right now? If you've seen some of these things. I have actually seen a rotary phone in my life. My grandparents had a rotary phone in their kitchen, and so that's what that is. You've got an alarm clock. There is a book down there. You've got a video camera, a flashlight, a compass. Some of y'all don't even know what some of this stuff is. You've got an MP3 player. What was the first one? iPod. Thank you. You had a GPS, a notepad. You got a calculator, a Sony Walkman. Man, I think that's a tape measure. I don't know how that works. You got a voice recorder, a voltmeter. I don't know. And then you've got a Game Boy, another gaming system. We pack all of that into this little phone. And if all you've ever known is this, you have not lived. My goodness. That is a beautiful thing, that we can tap into such wonderful technology, but it also can be a very terrible thing. It can be a very distracting thing. I mentioned it briefly. What's missing up there? You see a book, but it's a beautiful thing that you can open your app and you can get just about any translation on this earth at the touch of a finger. And it's also a beautiful thing. You can download an app called Blue Letter Bible, and you can find out the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic of a particular word at the touch of your fingertips. That's fantastic. So it can be used for a good thing. I'm not saying phones or anything that I list. I'm not saying any of this is bad. What I'm saying is Satan can use these things to distract you and me. This one's stepping on my toes because part of the problem is this is part of my work requires this. In some cases. And so our task is to not let Satan distract us with it. The problem is that we've created something that we really can't live without, or at least in our culture. How many times have you walked out without your phone? My phone goes in this back pocket. I've walked out of the house without my wallet, without my key. But if I don't have my phone in my back pocket, something feels wrong. Like there's a disturbance in the force and I must make it right. And if I get too far away, my watch tells me, hey, I'm not connected to your phone anymore. We just have to have our phones with us. And it just feels wrong if you don't have it. Phones, like many other conveniences in our life, can be used for good, but they can also distract us. They can also have many other negative effects. Studies have shown that test scores amongst our youth dropped in 2012 across the nation. You know what else happened in 2012? Smartphone came out. Before that, we had Blackberries. Y'all remember Blackberries with a little whole keypad on there? And if you got big fat fingers like I do, you were doing a lot of correcting. Smartphones came out, and we have all this access to technology and other things in our pocket, and test scores dropped. And so if I'm Satan, I'm going to use your phone to distract you. Your phone is not evil, but Satan can use it as a tool. So that's one thing under entertainment. Let's talk about social media. Social media is the most addictive of probably, well, maybe not. It's one of the most addictive things. And the other problem is that you can get social media on here, so it's like a double whammy, right? Both of them apply in this case. It is scientifically proven that you get a shot of dopamine every time you swipe. And it's a little bit. It's a little shot. And That dopamine is that feel-good chemical that your brain releases. You feel good when things happen, when your team gets a touchdown or wins a game or something like that. Those are big shots of dopamine. You're getting that when you scroll on social media. And so that every time you do it, it reinforces your dependency on it. You know what else gives you massive shots of dopamine? Drugs. Drugs like cocaine and heroin and nicotine, they stimulate the release of large amounts of dopamine in the brain, creating an intense feeling of pleasure and euphoria. And although social media doesn't do that amount, right? What do you think the effect is of little shots over and over time? It can be extremely addictive. And so you're going to see that a theme of all these things that can distract you is that thing that I will point out is extremely addictive, especially if you have an addictive personality. If you haven't watched it, there's a documentary called The Social Dilemma. And it's a little old now, I guess, but it's so applicable. It goes through how social media hooks you. That's their job. If it's free to you, then you are what is being sold. In social media, companies pay for your attention so they can feed you ads or achieve something else that usually leads to money. And so social media companies get paid to keep your attention. And the destructive part of that is the social media companies don't care about you. All they care about is they keep your attention. And they will do it in any way possible because they don't care about your soul either. And it will send people down very dark paths. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the documentary. Social media, and this is what they talked about in there, social media has been linked to the rise of depression and anxiety in our society today. And it's not just our young people. Anytime you can say that about something, that it links, that like the mass consumption of this thing is linked to anxiety and depression, that should tell you, okay, that's the tool of the devil. Love for God and good, pure things, whatever is good, whatever is noble, those things aren't going to lead to anxiety and depression. And so that should be a trigger in our mind. In social media, young girls are most negatively impacted, and it does very serious damage to their self-esteem. So, social media has been tied to anxiety and depression for adults as well, but our young men and women haven't developed the maturity or the ability to deal with it like adults have. What else in entertainment? Video games. Video games have similar addictive properties that can distract us and pull us in. One of the first units I was with, there was another guy that was older than me. I guess I was in my late 20s and he was in his 30s. He was pretty newly married. Maybe wasn't newly married, but every night after dinner, he would go up in his little room that was over the garage. That was his gaming room. And he spent hours playing video games. A 30-something-year-old guy. He was an adult child walking around. And then they had a kid, and you're like, okay, well, it ended there, right? It did not. He had a child, and he still played a whole lot of video games. He didn't leave that part of his childhood behind. You see, video games can be to boys what social media is to girls. They are highly addictive and can have serious negative effects. It's that dopamine hit constantly. Video games just feed that need for constant action. And so if there's anything that replaces human connection with something especially as highly addictive as these things, that should be a red flag in our minds. Social media and video games also have a negative impact on the attention span of our kids. It's harder to keep their attention. And we've seen that in studies of school-age children as well. The ability to swipe on YouTube Shorts or on Instagram or Facebook is bringing our attention span lower and lower. And when I was first starting out and posting videos on YouTube, I would do all the studies on it. And when I first started in 2022-ish, the studies would show that you had to hook somebody's attention within the first 30 seconds. You know what it is now? It's like 6 to 10 seconds. If you don't grab someone's attention within 10 seconds, you've probably lost them because our attention spans have gotten that short. We're distracted. We want that next dopamine hit. How hard is it for someone with that short of attention span to listen to a sermon? Or pay attention in Bible study class or in school? Satan is winning the distraction game. So if I'm Satan, I'm going to use these things to distract you from the things that really matter. And since anxiety and depression are directly tied to phones and social media and video game usage, if I'm Satan, I'm going to use those things. I'm going to push those things onto you in order to pull you down into that anxiety and depression, and I win. Well, maybe none of this that I have said yet has stepped on your toes or applied to you. Some of it has me already. What about movies and TV? If you've been binge-watched shows, there's a good chance you're being distracted from what really matters. When I was growing up, you knew the day of the week and the time that your favorite show came on. And you moved your entire schedule out of the way. I'm going to have dinner done by the time my show comes on, and I'm going to sit down free from distraction, and I want to get to watch my shows. But nowadays, you just turn on Netflix, and you binge watch all of the series. How many Bluey episodes are there? My daughter's watched them all. So maybe I should look to thine own self, right? That can be a distraction if we let it. Again, these things aren't inherently evil in and of themselves, but they can be tools. Sports. What about sports? Sports can fall into this category, and we're in the deep south, so sports are an obsession, right? We can let it take over. And we all know those people that just talk about it all the time. They never talk about anything else. Sports can be a distraction. You can probably think of many, many more examples where entertainment, we really haven't even moved past entertainment yet, but you could probably think of more under that category. The next one is work. Work can absolutely be a distraction. In the military, there's no 9 to 5. In the military, they beat into your head that lives are at stake, so you stay until the job is done. And that is true in combat. That is true in training for combat, because you train like you fight. But that mentality is taken back to the workplace when you're sitting at a desk and you're not training and you're not in combat. And so I saw a lot of, and in some cases was, a workaholic during my time. If I'm Satan and I can distract you in your job, telling you that you have to work nonstop to make ends meet, especially if you actually make enough to live a modest life, or I tell you that you need to work more so that you can get more things, then I've effectively distracted you. And so work can absolutely be a distraction. Well, I mentioned things, right? So things is a very broad category, but possessions is really what I'm talking about, right? Our possessions can distract us. The need to want more and more things out of keeping up with the Joneses or whatever the motivation is. Again, there's nothing wrong with having things. But if Satan can use envy or jealousy to make you want what other people have or to make you want more, that can be a distraction from the things that really matter, like relationships or charity. I want to keep the money or make more money so that I can buy more things, rather than when somebody comes up and says there's really a need here. Yeah, but I want things. Those things can distract us. Other things that matter: caring for one another, spending time with one another, spending time with your family. And so that's kind of the litmus test. If you sacrifice the good things that God talks about to do these things, anything, then you've been distracted. If not, you probably haven't been distracted, and good on you. The last one that we'll talk about this evening, Sam actually talked about it this morning. He referenced the 2 verses that I'm going to show you here in a minute, but the Bible calls it foolishness. I'm just going to use that term. But what I mean here is, in the church, we can have distractions within the church, within congregations. Paul advised against getting caught up in pointless arguments or controversies, which can be a major distraction from the core message of the gospel. In 2 Timothy 2:23, the NIV puts it this way: don't have anything to do with foolish and stupid arguments. I love how blunt he is with Timothy sometimes. Because you know they produce quarrels. And so if I'm Satan, I'm going to distract you with foolish and stupid arguments. Titus 3:9, he says it very similarly, but he adds some other things in there. He says, avoid foolish controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law. Wait for it. For they are unprofitable, there we go, and worthless. There's a lesson for us there. If we're more worried about law keeping than the weightier matters like justice and mercy and faithfulness, Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, then we've let Satan distract us. Within congregations, bickering about things and dissensions and strife, those are distractions. That's where we're going to pick up on part 3. We're going to zoom in on this concept and see all the ways that Satan can use his tactics within the congregation, within the church. These here are just 2 examples, but there's so many more we could talk about in the church. So if I'm Satan, you can go ahead and get your hymnals out now. As we move into the conclusion, if I am Satan, I'm going to get you addicted to your phone, or addicted to video games, or social media, or movies, or TV, or sports, or work, or things, possessions. I'm going to keep you focused on those things so that you don't grow and work in the kingdom. I'm going to whisper in your ear just one more YouTube video, one more level, one more text, one more episode, one more scroll, one more ball game, one more hour of overtime, or just one more toy. It's not that big of a deal. It's not going to hurt anything. If I'm Satan, I'm going to keep you away from what's really important in life through distraction. So your task this evening, your mission, if you will, what are you most distracted by? I don't know what you're distracted by. These are just some examples. You may just say, none of that gets to me. None of that bothers me. None of that distracts me. But if you're tonight, something might distract you. And so take a look at yourself and think through what might distract you. Is there something that you enjoy so much that it keeps you from doing the other things that you should be doing or focusing on more? If you can't think of anything today, you may be distracted without even knowing it. Because that's the point of distraction. You don't know it. But sometimes we as Christians need to stop and take stock of what could I be distracted by. And so make it your mission this week to figure out what that is. As you read your Bible, hopefully you can now recognize Satan's tactics by noticing whenever the Bible says, watch out for this. That's a tactic he can use to get you to stumble. Whatever the case may be, make it your goal this week to not let Satan win, but to refocus on your primary goal, which is a focus on Christ and your walk with God. If you aren't currently a child of God, that should be your primary focus. If you need to respond to the gospel or do anything else, if you have any other need, we'd love to help you. If you come forward, if you come forward while we stand and sing.